Chris Harrison has a long history of upholding white supremacy within the Bachelor franchise, but during his latest interview with former Bachelorette Rachel Lindsay, his ignorance, privilege, prejudice, and outdated beliefs were on full display for the whole world to see. The online backlash that ensued was so intense that Chris decided to step away from his hosting duties for an unknown amount of time in order to, quote-unquote, educate himself. Is Chris Harrison an evil human being to his core? Does he have any redeeming qualities? Let me take a quick look at his natal chart. Chris Harrison is a Leo sun, and Leo individuals can be one of the most racist people in the world because Leo is the sign associated with royalty, power, superiority, and Leo individuals can be very elitist, entitled, they thrive on privilege, and they enjoy being in positions of power and maintaining those positions of power since Leo is a fixed sign, so it doesn't like change. Leo is a sign who struggles to put their ego aside, and as a result is very sensitive to criticism to the point where they totally dismiss the majority of it, especially when the criticism comes from people they don't respect, people they look down on, and they have a hard time learning from their mistakes and growing up, which leads me to my next point, which is the fact that Leo is the sign of youth and children. So individuals with strong Leo energy in their natal chart, they can have very childish tendencies. In other words, they can be very ignorant and immature. And in his interview with Rachel Lindsay, Chris says multiple times, "I don't know, Rachel, I don't know, you tell me." So he didn't know what he was talking about, yet he kept on talking, and that's very Leo. Leo individuals can act like experts in every single topic when in reality they don't know anything. And keep in mind that Leo is also the sign of performance arts, aka acting. So some Leo individuals can have a tendency to put on an act when it's convenient for them. Chris Harrison's Mercury is severely afflicted, and this can imply difficulties expressing himself, communicating with others, learning new things, reasoning and thinking logically. So his Mercury being so afflicted can explain why he's so stupid and delusional. Since his Mercury is in the sign of Leo, his dark-sided Leo nature comes out every time he opens his mouth, and this reinforces him having a childish mentality and talking from a place of ignorance as opposed to a place of facts. He can also be very condescending when he talks to people, and if you watched his interview with Rachel Lindsay, you can see how he kept interrupting her and invalidating her opinions. His Mercury is at the 29th degree, which is a critical degree, and this can point to Chris constantly getting in trouble for his thoughts, his beliefs, and some of the things that come out of his mouth. And that Rachel Lindsay interview wasn't the first time Chris said problematic stuff. He actually has a long history of celebrating whiteness and white mediocrity while ignoring and downplaying racism and discrimination within the Bachelor franchise. His Mercury is forming a square to Saturn, and this can make him very narrow-minded, old-fashioned, and unwilling to evolve when it comes to his thoughts. He's the type of person who loves tradition and who lives in the past. He has this "if it ain't broke, don't fix it" mentality. He can also be very pessimistic, and during his interview with Rachel Lindsay, he kept talking about how he can't please everyone and that people will be criticizing him no matter what he does, so he's just going to do what he wants to do unapologetically. His Mercury is also squaring his Jupiter, which reinforces his self-righteousness, his tendency to believe that he's the expert, that he's always in the right, and that other people are always in the wrong. This can also make him very unpractical and overly optimistic, like when he promised Bachelor Nation that the show would make efforts to be less racist without actually telling the fans how exactly the network would fulfill their promise without making a concrete, detailed plan of action. He also has a tendency to exaggerate situations, like when he referred to minorities, criticizing him as the woke police or as lions during his interview with Rachel Lindsay. So this man has a big problem with his perspective on things, and this is reinforced by his Mercury also squaring his Neptune. This square reinforces Chris being delusional. He likes to create his own false narrative, and that Mercury-Neptune square can also make him tend to always play victim and run away from things instead of facing reality and taking accountability for his mistakes. And Chris does have a tendency to always focus on the intensity of the backlash he receives as opposed to the reason behind the backlash. Jupiter deals with your beliefs, your morals, your judgment. It also deals with the truth. And Chris's Jupiter is in the sign of Scorpio, aka the sign of crime, abuse, manipulation, lies, secrecy. So this man is ruthless. He's shameless. His moral compass is very questionable. And unfortunately, he might be the type who can get away with problematic behavior and problematic actions, since Scorpio is a sign that's very strategic and calculated. His Jupiter is also conjunct to his Neptune, which rules lies, deception, delusions. So his idea of truth is often distorted. His Jupiter and his Neptune are opposing his Gemini Saturn, which can reinforce Chris being out of touch with reality. Chris having his Saturn in Gemini can point to him refusing to acknowledge points of view that differ from his point of view. Gemini is the sign of curiosity and learning, so when you combine it with Saturn, the planet of restrictions and limitations, this can support my theory about Chris being intellectually challenged. I think he's definitely insecure about his low IQ and his communication skills, and apparently he wasn't PR trained for his interview with Rachel Lindsay. So the behavior he exhibited during that interview was his true nature. That was his Gemini Saturn in full display. Someone who doesn't know how to speak spontaneously and someone who needs to rely on PR training. And Gemini is the sign of press and media, so Saturn in Gemini can point to Chris needing PR training before every single interview he does. Otherwise, he always ends up looking like a fool. His Saturn is being deposited by his Leo Mercury, so his Leo arrogance is actually a facade. He's overcompensating and relying on his status and his privilege to feel good about himself, but deep down he's very insecure, especially on the mental plane. Chris's Venus is in the sign of Cancer, and Cancer, along with Leo, is also one of the most racist signs of the zodiac. Cancer is associated with everything that's white, like white people. It also deals with tradition, the past, and Venus represents your values. So having Venus in Cancer can make someone very conservative and protective of their roots and their heritage. And in Chris's case, it's white people, the Republican Party, his faith, etc. So Cancer Venus individuals can be very defensive and protective of people who look like them or people they consider as family. And you can clearly see that Cancer Venus manifestation during that Rachel Lindsay interview. Cancer is also the sign of comfort. So Cancer Venus individuals don't like being uncomfortable or having uncomfortable conversations. And notice how Chris always seems so afraid to use the word racist during interviews. And that's because he doesn't want to face reality. Chris Harrison is a Leo South Node, which is why it's so hard for him to let go of his own ego. In a past life, he used to be a leader, a royal, a powerful person, and this is where his entitlement comes from. This is where he feels comfortable. But in this lifetime as an Aquarius North Node, he needs to realize that he's not that important. He's not that great. He's also destined to experience social exclusion, being shunned by society, and in the process he's gonna have to learn how to become less selfish and more selfless. He needs to stop making everything about him and learn how to serve others and have a more humanitarian mindset. He also needs to get with the times and stop living like we're in the 1970s, since Aquarius is a very future-oriented sign that likes to stay ahead and keep up with modern society. His moon is conjunct to his Pluto in the sign of Virgo, which can create a man who's very resentful and manipulative with women, especially the women he works with, aka Bachelor contestants, since Virgo deals with the work environment. And notice how Chris kept playing mind games and gaslighting games with Rachel Lindsay during that interview. It was very moon conjunct Pluto. His moon is also forming a quincunx to his Aquarius Mars, which can also point to conflict with women. This can also make him very quick to react, and it reinforces his inability to accept criticism. I also remember Chris saying during an interview a long time ago that in society, men always have it harder than women, and men are always in the wrong no matter what the situation is. So Chris really seems to have deep-seated issues with women, and that's just very weird. His Chiron is in the sign of Aries, and it's forming a sesquiquadrate to his Mercury, his Jupiter, and his Neptune, and this can make him a coward, a man-child. He can also be very unapologetic about who he is, no matter how problematic he gets. And again, he really doesn't like criticism at all. His Chiron is opposing his Libra Uranus, and this can point to his distaste for social media because fans keep calling him out on his opinions. Also, Chris Harrison's Aquarius Mars is retrograde, so this reinforces this theme of frustration and tension between him and the collective. So in this lifetime, he needs to learn how to really be careful with his words when speaking to the wide public. So my main takeaway is that this man is a very biased, religious, old-fashioned, conservative individual. His ego is through the roof, and the left side of his brain is alarmingly deficient. If you enjoyed this reading, please press the thumbs up button below, and please subscribe to this channel for more readings like this one. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next video.